Dorothy Wendinger, normally Dodie Wendinger.
My name is Terry Sweeney.
Bob Skillings.
Dick Seaboth.
Mark Santelman.
My name is Vern Kisberger.
Jim Bartles.
Hi, I'm Andrea Betker. I'm the Executive Director of Turner Hall and the President of the New Ulm City Council.
I'm Dave Borkert. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of New Ulm.
And I am the current mayor of New Ulm.
KNUJ, New Ulm area resident.
I have very fond memories of Red Wyczawski. I was originally an Auslander, moved here on the last day of the year 1978, and it wasn't but a month or so later that he just walked up and introduced himself.
We moved to town back in '67, and I went to St. Mary's School, and one of my first friends was Red's son, Tom, who's been a lifelong friend of mine. First of all, as a child, hanging out with Tom at their home, and his parents were always very gracious.
Well, Red Wyczawski was a dear, dear friend of mine. We go way back. I knew him well when he was mayor, and he did a lot of things for the town of New Ulm.
Red Wyczawski. Okay, boy, I'll tell you what, I tried to make some notes on some memories of Red, and there are many. So I first came to KNUJ in 1975, and I think it was probably about 5 months into being there, so early 1976, our station manager at the time, Perry Galvin, decided he trusted me enough as a sales rep that he was going to start giving me some of the accounts that he'd been calling on. One of them was Green Clothers. So as you walk into Green Clothers, go in that far left corner, and there was a little office, and out of there would come Red Wyczawski. And so I dealt with him on the advertising that they did for many years until they closed the business, I guess. But also Red would come and talk to me, and I got to find out about him, his work with the Milwaukee Braves, and all of his baseball background that way.
My association with Red Wyczawski, I'd known him for a long, long time, but I believe he was the one who nominated me in late 2002 to be on New Ulm's American Legion Baseball Committee. New Ulm was hosting the Central Plains American Legion Baseball Regional Tournament, and Red was co-chair of that tournament with Godey Palmer, and our committee nailed it. We received a lot of accolades for that.
Love to see him at the ball field.
And he also, he knew quite a bit about sportscasting, and he gave me some tips on when I was doing some play-by-play, but also some of the things that we did in covering sports for KNUJ. He would remind me, okay, Jim, if you're giving scores, remember the teams that New Ulm plays during the year. You might want to give their scores also. So if New Ulm played Shakopee in baseball, we might want to cover a few of Shakopee's scores during the season, just because sports fans would be interested in that. So he was a mentor. No question about that.
We have a couple of tournaments in town known as the Upper Midwest Classic and the Junior Upper Midwest Classic. They began first known as the Firecracker Tournament, and Red was deeply involved with starting that tournament. And that tournament has come on to be one of the more prestigious tournaments in the Upper Midwest for American Legion Baseball. He would look at the rosters of the teams that were playing, recognize the last name, and try and get a hold of that kid between games or something. And he'd ask him, "What's your dad's name?" And he says, "Oh, I remember him. I remember your grandpa too." And he just had a rapport with the players. He knew all the coaches that came in.
Well, Red Wyczawski, to me, without a doubt, was New Ulm's #1 sports fan. All the sports, all the schools, Red was up on it, followed them all. I think that was a pretty key deal for Red. KNUJ's Player of the Year banquet has been going on since 1960. We started doing the Player of the Week show in 62, so our first banquet was in 63. So as we're recording this in 2022, KNUJ is up to, we're getting close to the 60th annual. And up until about 3 years ago, Red had only missed one banquet, and he would remind me of that. And it was a snowstorm year, I think it was, and so he couldn't get over to the Orchid Inn in Sleepy Eye where it was held at that time. But you talk about loyal, and again, a big sports fan, not just for New Ulm, but for the area, because KNUJ covers about a 25 school area. Red would be there, and he'd come early. So the last years we were having it until this time, he'd be about 2 rows back, and he'd have some friends he'd be with. That's where Red would be. And as some of the coaches came in, or some of the athletes, he'd go over or engage conversation with them and make sure that they renewed their friendship. And if they didn't know each other before, he made sure they knew each other after that time. Another sports thing involving KNUJ that I remembered about Red, when the Minnesota Twins hold a winter caravan, it pretty much every year gets to be in New Ulm, and we're very proud of that. Not every community gets that. Red never missed one of them. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. We were having our winter caravan. We did it out at, I think it was Oak Hills Living Center. And Red was there on his 90th birthday. And they would go through the caravan presentation, and then they'd ask for questions or comments. Red's hand would go up. He'd have a question. He wanted to know about those Minnesota Twins and how they were going to be that year. And he'd be asking the players. On his 90th birthday, he was very engaged in that.
When he moved to New Ulm, one of his first interests was in accumulating team records and individual player statistics of all our American Legion baseball seasons. And he didn't get a whole lot of help from the local newspaper because whether it was intentional or not, they had destroyed a bunch of their older records and stuff and articles. So he went to the Brown County Museum and spent many hours there organizing and accumulating those old records. Because of Red's work, we probably have the most extensive set of American Legion baseball records of anybody in Minnesota. Red was also instructive in beginning New Ulm's American Legion Baseball Hall of Fame. And it's because we had those records and stuff, we can honor the appropriate individuals to be inducted in a ceremony that we hold every 2 years. And obviously Red is in that Hall of Fame also. Because of that was a strong point. Red was nominated and elected to the Minnesota American Legion Baseball Hall of Fame for all the contributions he made to our program. And I know he's also in the Minnesota Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame. He's probably one of the very few individuals who are in both of those Hall of Fames.
I met Red actually long before I was a police officer. I was still in high school. I met him actually in Winthrop. Highway 15 was just opening. I grew up in Winthrop, and there was a ribbon cutting for the new opening of Highway 15, which is a really big deal. What really stuck out, you only have the first time for the first impression. You don't get another chance at it. And I just remember the mayor, my dad was the mayor of Winthrop, and Red was the mayor of New Ulm, and they had this ribbon cutting, and remember him coming up to me, introducing himself to me. I was really impressed with how articulate he was. Just very smooth, really hit the points well. At that point in life when you're in high school, you're not thinking, 30, 40 years later, you're going to run into the same individuals. But several years later, when I started in New Ulm in 1999 as a police officer, the mayor at that point was retired. He's no longer the mayor. In fact, Bert Shopacom was the mayor at the time. But I had the opportunity of being introduced to him actually by Bert in City Hall. And again, the second introduction, very smooth, just a fun guy to talk to. Every time I met him, it was like we were just taking over from our last conversation. He would remember things like the age of my son, where my wife was working. He would ask for an update on all of that. Very personable. And I really think things like that, I wish we had more of that in this world. And Red was an extremely good leader. And, as a police chief, as a county commissioner, I really learned a lot from him. And he was always one of those guys, I would always look for an opportunity. He would brighten up your day if you saw him someplace. I even seeked him out, trying to, at least have a few words with him before I took off somewhere.
Stops me at the MBL gym. We were there for a high school basketball game. He was there for Cathedral, and I was there for MBL. And he says, "You're Mark Sandelman. You're on NewCat. Mark, you are the best interviewer I have ever seen." And I looked at him and I thought, me? You don't mean me, do you? And he went on and on and on about how much he enjoyed something artsy and seeing all the guests. Then I learned about him and his resume, and I'm going, I don't think he understood. He's met many, many people that are far better than me. But he said it with so much genuineness, and he said it so authentically that it really meant a lot to me.
And it's remarkable how the man could remember faces and names.
He was a Minnesota Music Hall of Fame member, and he also came to almost every banquet induction ceremony we had, and he would come to many other fundraisers and that, and he just thoroughly liked the Hall of Fame and supported us in many ways.
I remember seeing him at Turner Hall a lot. He liked the ribs. He liked to order the takeout of the ribs, and remember bringing them out to his car one day and just always had the most wonderful things to say.
I remember first meeting him when my mom would take him to the clothing store. If I remember the story right, it was called Green's, which was his wife's father owned it, if that's how that goes. And then Red eventually took over as the owner. But as a young guy going in there and getting a suit coat for my first confirmation and things like that, and he's always nice to you. He didn't talk down to you as an adult to a kid. He came to your level and spoke to you. He was always a nice guy to young, snotty teenage kids in New Ulm, at least using myself as the example.
We talked about so many different things, and he was just very interested in my husband's life, being a musician, and he liked my husband in with his playing.
I didn't really have a chance to know him as mayor of New Ulm, but I know he served 6 terms, which is a feat.
I did a little bit of math here. We're required to keep track of what we do being mayor for the city council, and I've been averaging 15 hours a week, and in Red's case, added by 24 years, 18,720 hours. Now, I can't tell you that he exactly spent that much time, but the concept of how much it is.
It's an amazing thing, and it just is a testament to the public service and the caring that he had in his heart for this community.
Red was committed to this community and the greater world community. He understood the value of cultural exchange. He was a strong supporter of the Sister Cities partnership that exists between New Ulm and Neu-Ulm, Germany.
And there's a neat magazine, it's a good 25 years old already, where Red and Mary are in there quite a bit when they went to trips to Europe, to Germany, and Ulm, Germany in particular. And I just imagine the dignity and the grace in which he represented New Ulm. I question that I would have the same skill level that he did.
To demonstrate that, he showed up notebook in hand at every Heritage Fest and made an effort to get a signature from all the foreign performers that were the hallmark of Heritage Fest. And he was always available to the Heritage Fest committee to make presentations on the final day of the event to the groups as they departed. Red really understood the value of people to people, and that's why I remember him, and that's why he was a great mayor.
Again, just a really fun guy, really good guy to talk to, good-natured, great leader. And, you know, I wish we had more people like that.
So I had nothing but good regards for Red.
He was just a great friend, and I'm honored to be able to bring up some of my memories of Red and our past.
And now, once again, here I am, wishing about all of the conversations I wish I could have with him, or anyone else that's passed.
And literally, Red and I are related way back. So that would be another hour's work of talking, if we want to talk about that.
The last time that I got to talk to Red in person, his daughter and his son brought him out to Turner Hall. They had the 4th of July celebration at Turner Hall, and again, Red's daughter and his son brought Red out there. We pulled in just as Red was starting to get ready to leave. They had brought the vehicle up that he wouldn't have to walk real far, and his daughter and son again were there. And wow, what a great conversation, talking to Red. His mind was pretty doggone sharp yet, and I'm so glad that I had that chance to talk to him that one more time. One other thing about Red, he always took the time to ask how my kids were doing. Adam, Abby, and Jill. He followed them all in their sports activities, and he always asked about them. You know, how many people do that? Red did that. Yeah, thanks, Red. Always remember you. I guess the emotions come out in the sleeve a little bit. But those things are pretty special, that people take time to remember your family. And I thought that was cool. And again, did I learn from Red? Absolutely. What a great mentor. And number one promoter for New Ulm, and New Ulm's number one sports fan. Always remember it.
So if I can offer one piece of advice, if you've got somebody in your life that's important to you and you know they're closing in on the final years or days, go sit with them. Go have conversations with them. Ask them about their first date. Ask them about the first car they owned. Ask them about anything. Doesn't have to be big or important. And if it's with somebody like Red, you won't have to talk much.
He was just a real gentleman. I represented New Ulm, went to his funeral, and I actually got a little teary-eyed thinking of what he all did.
He will certainly be missed.
Red, in my heart, is very dear.